Today I wanted to quickly talk about Insomniac games. Some of you might not know that these guys have made, I think, around 4 VR games in total so far, and recently they got acquired by PlayStation for around 229 million, I believe, and their most recent game, Stormland, has now been removed from the Oculus store, which is such a shame. Stormland is a fantastic game. I don't think it's the best game ever made in VR, but it's definitely one of the most technically impressive games of its time, and would still actually surprise people today if you could get it on some other headsets and consoles. Now, looking back at Insomniac Games' VR game history, they made some quite impressive titles for their time, leading up to eventually what was Stormland. Now, Insomniac's very first game in VR was called Edge of Nowhere, and I personally absolutely love this game even to this day. Again, like most of these titles up to Stormland, they weren't really based on using touch controllers, so there's no real sick stuff. You can use controllers, but they just work as a gamepad. So most of these games you probably play with a gamepad, and I believe the CV1 used to ship with an Xbox controller anyway, so everyone would have had a controller to play these games. In Edge of Nowhere, you play Victor Howard, and he's on a journey to save his fiancée Ava Thorne, who's part of a lost expedition in Antarctica. As you go on this mission, basically things just turn very dark and the game turns into like a nightmare scenario. And it's quite funny looking at some of the quotes of the game, and one was from Kotaku. It basically said, "You're not simply playing Uncharted or a Tomb Raider game, you're actually inside one." And that's what the game was kind of like. It's a really exciting game to play, and it's really unfortunate that a lot of you can't play it because you will only be able to play it on PCVR. And leading up to Stormland, when we get there, unless you've already owned the game, you won't be able to play it anymore, which is a real shame. But their journey into VR didn't stop there. Then we had Feral Rights, which, as far as I can remember when I last played it, was basically a VR beat 'em up. Your character can then embody like a spiritual animal, and that gave you super abilities, a bit like Bloody Raw, if any of you played that back in the day. You could air juggle these guys, and it was quite a satisfying game, but it basically was meant to be played on an Xbox controller. Like, you can play it with touch controllers, but it doesn't really offer you anything. They just work as a gamepad. But as I said, back in September 2016, this game was kind of cool. And then third on this list out of the 4 is a game called Unspoken Acolytes. Now, personally, I've never played this game. I do own it. I made sure that I got all these games in my library because I had a feeling that when Insomniac were bought by PlayStation, like, basically we just wouldn't get any more VR games from these guys. And sure enough, with Stormland, it basically confirms that I was right to actually have these installed. And from what I can tell, if you've ever played a game like The Wizards, it's kind of on that level, but the graphics look really good even now. And one of the things it really pushed was multiplayer. So it was like The Wizards versus someone else. It got really good ratings, and I might have to actually check this one out. So I fired up Stormland today to remember what the game was actually like, and what I was welcomed with is still nothing short of spectacular. The graphics, the freedom of movement, and the speed was truly fantastic. There is so many intricate details, the weapons feel amazing, and the haptics was some of the best I've felt in ages. The world looks alive and populated with plants and animals. Considering this game is over 4 years old, there isn't still much that stands up to it today. But it leads me into thinking, why was it taken away from PCVR users? Is Insomniac bringing this fantastic game to PSVR 2? And surely with VR development skills like this, the studio is ready to make something truly special for VR and PSVR 2. It's what the community needs right now, but I'll be honest, playing this today has drawn me straight back in again and possibly leading me to exploring this game all over again. I really hope it's not the last we see of Insomniac in the VR space. Thank you ever so much for watching. I know it's just a quick video, but it just shocks me that games like this just are going away. These are some of the best VR games we've ever had, and it pains me to think they're stuck on PCVR, especially at the moment when developers aren't really chasing PCVR as a platform to make money. It's all about Quest. Now, I've got nothing against Quest and how the games look, but to be honest, when you see really good looking games on PSVR 2 and PCVR, it's just a reminder that some of the best games might actually be behind us.